With Minority Leader, Republican Congressman from California, Kevin McCarthy. Good to have you back, sir.
Thanks for having me on again.
I want to play a little bit of the speaker tonight talking about this new fight over funding and how it does or doesn't come together. Here's what she said.
We have to put money in the pockets of the American people, recognizing the pain, the agony that they are feeling. To those who would suggest a pause, I'll say the hunger doesn't take a pause, the rent doesn't take a pause, the hardship doesn't take a pause.
Okay, so Democrats are playing hardball. They've got a wish list, and they say if you don't put this together and come together with them at the table, real Americans are going to suffer. And you know that's how they're going to campaign on this if you guys don't step up. So how do the negotiations go from here?
Well, no one's invited to the table, not even the Democratic members. This is a Pelosi-led pipe dream written in private. They even want to change the process how you vote for it by proxy. You know, they're trying to make a pandemic political. And the one thing we have found is we have passed $3 trillion already. On top of what the Fed is doing, another $4 trillion, there's $7 trillion going into the economy. I think it would be appropriate that we make sure that money gets out into the businesses. Every time we move to pass a bill, Nancy Pelosi has held it up. And every time she held it up, more people were laid off. And now she wants to write a bill privately, not allow Congress back into the Capitol. You go to Starbucks and get a tea. You go over to the Senate and see them working, but not the Capitol, not the House. Why? Because Nancy wants to write this in private and try to put it on the floor and change 200 years of history on how people vote for the bill, just so she could have 200 votes in her pocket by a proxy and pass something that never had one hearing, never had any input, and has no accountability. I think the founders would be appalled at what they're seeing today in Congress.
Well, one of the sticking points clearly seems to be the money to go to states and localities, and Democrats are pushing for that, and they say that basically the feds need to write a check to these states and localities that are losing their tax revenue. They're facing really dire situations. A number of Democratic lawmakers have signed on to a letter saying this: we respectfully and urgently request $1 trillion in direct and flexible relief to states and local governments. Red and blue states alike are all faced with the same COVID-19 math as our Democratic and Republican mayors across our states. They say direct and flexible. What kind of strings would you want attached to money flowing from the Fed to the states?
Well, first of all, before I spent hardworking taxpayers' money at $1 trillion, I'd want to know where it's going to go and why. Because we've already given almost $1 trillion to the states. There's another $150 billion sitting there. We gave them $500 billion in less than 1 month. Put that in perspective. We spend roughly $600 billion in an entire year when it comes to Medicare. So I know there are a lot of states. If you look at Illinois, they have a credit rating that's similar to Indonesia. I'm sure they want a lot of money because they mismanaged a lot of things. Before any money went out, wouldn't you want to have one hearing before you pass another $3 trillion? Wouldn't you want to have any accountability? Wouldn't you want to actually see what did they do with the $1 trillion we already gave them before you want to write another check? This again, as you showed earlier, the Democrats don't care about how much money they spend. That's why they held up our help to those who were working in small business to get more money for the Kennedy Center, more money for the arts. They don't care about this. They want to make it politicized. They hold every single bill up. You watch the speaker smile in her freezer and said she said no to small business. They employ more people than any other business, and this went directly to their employees to keep them hired, and she smiled while she said it.
Well, you know, they make the same accusations across the aisle that there are political things coming into play in every bit of this. But we're going to watch as this plays out on the Hill, because the American people, many of them still are in desperate need, but many of them are also raising concerns about debt and how far this is going to go, and the construction that should be in process for this money that goes out. Mr. Minority Leader, good to have you back with us.
Thank you very much. And they were serious about this bill. They would have had a hearing, and they would have showed their own members, and they would have asked us to participate with them. But they've asked nobody but Pelosi's kitchen table to write it in private.
We'll keep asking questions. Thank you. All right, President